Inside the Birds is back. What's going on, everybody? It's Geoff Mosher, it's Adam Caplan, and we've got a middle of the week Inside the Birds podcast. And we got some interesting stuff. Obviously, the Eagles are making some moves and not just doing some personnel transactions, but I think there's some messaging that we can decipher from some of the moves that they've made.
Maybe.
And and as of right now, Adam, it's Wednesday morning for most people who are listening to this, and the Eagles are still a day away from taking the practice field. Now, do you think Thursday they will treat Thursday like a Wednesday? But I'm wondering if Thursday will be a walkthrough day. I don't know if they need to do that.
Well, here's the question.
Mm-hmm.
I saw the media schedule for practices Thursday, Friday, and Saturday. I get that part of it.
Right.
But as we know, Andy Reid would have the dreaded 10-10-10 after bye on that Monday. So what I found interesting is they didn't need to put Justin Evans in the window on Tuesday, but they did.
Right.
So why do they put him in the window on Tuesday? Maybe we're going to look into this. We'll ask if there was any strategy to it. I'm just curious why they did that on Tuesday instead of Thursday. Now, I know by league rule, you cannot practice for any reason unless you've been designated into the window. Like, for instance, if they had a walkthrough, he can't do that.
Right.
He has to, he would have to be activated to it. So maybe that had something to do with it. But again, yes, there was a workout on Monday. I was like, whoa, okay. There was one of the highest paid guards in NFL history at one point. There was one of those guys who worked out for the Eagles. We'll talk about that. That was a surprise to me, I thought. So we'll get into it.
Yeah. And to your point, on Wednesday today, there's no scheduled media availability, and you don't have to have media watching the first 10 minutes if you're only having a walkthrough type practice. So the Eagles could very well have a walkthrough today and nobody would know outside the NovaCare because they don't have to really discuss it, and they don't have to. Now, here's a question. If you held a walkthrough, do you have to put out an injury report?
No, because it's not a practice. So the league said
not even an estimation, right? You don't even have to put out an estimation.
Right, but they have to put out, every team must put out 3 injury reports per week. Even if you're playing Thursday, you have to put one out on Monday, though. Even if you don't even have a walkthrough, it's an estimated whether you would practice, if you practice, who would work and who wouldn't practice.
Right.
And hey, kudos to the league. It's great. In fact, remember we talked about the new rule this year. If you're on injured reserve, but you practice, if you're designated for return, the club must put what that guy did that day. So we'll know what Justin Evans does or doesn't do on Thursday, Friday, and Saturday.
There you go. All right. And it is an adjusted week for Inside the Birds. Obviously, our Friday podcast will drop as usual. We'll preview the Monday night matchup between the Eagles and the Kansas City Chiefs. What an exciting game, man. Just watching some tape today, too, on Kansas City. And this is going to be a great game. It's a Monday night game. I heard a stat. I can't attribute it because I don't remember who reported it. Unfortunately, I think I heard it on radio that this is the first time in Monday Night Football history that is a matchup between two teams that have won at least 7 games before week 11. So, usually Monday Night Football was always a good matchup, especially back in the day. Then there was a period where it wasn't. But yeah, it was pretty bad. But this is pretty. This might be history here, so that's pretty cool.
So on your point about this Monday night schedule, when I was at ESPN, for some reason, like the 4.5 years I was there, a lot of the Monday night games were duds, and we couldn't, as an ESPN employee, I couldn't comment on how bad the game was on Twitter because there was some time, some of the Thursday night football games have been dreadful, and it's on Amazon. Although I love the, I don't know if you see it, you can get all 22 on Amazon during the game. It's super cool. It's the next gen stats view. It's so great.
I have watched that a little. I don't think I can watch it for a whole game like that, but I can watch a few. Yeah.
It's cool though, because if you want to know, because when we watch, we can't see coverages on the TV copy, on the TV feed. You only get one shot, so you get 3 on the Amazon one. So anyway, but yeah, this is about as good as it gets. This will be fun, and our post game show will be right after it, around 11:15, 11:20 p.m. Eastern. So looking forward to that, and then I think you said the last show, Cosell and Harbor are going to have a really cool preview of this game.
Yeah, that should be out Thursday morning. Cosell and Clay Harbor will do like an all 22 type preview of the Chiefs and the Eagles game. I did say, I think in the last podcast, that we expected Derek Gunn to have a gun on one this week, and he was hoping to. Now I'm not exactly sure after talking with Gunner if we're going to be able to pull that one off. But again, as most people know now, he's dealing with a family issue. His wife had a stroke. She's recovering, but obviously there's a lot of medical attention needed, and he's got to be there for his wife and his family. So he was hoping to have it this week. It may not. If it doesn't, then maybe next week, but we will keep everybody posted as to when the next Gun on One is doing. And Gunnar did want to say thanks to everybody who has supported, who has donated on the GoFundMe, who is keeping him and his family in their thoughts, their prayers, their well wishes. So me and Gunnar are talking, and he's doing as well as you can be doing as far as going through this situation. So his head's up. As far as Patreon, we will have our flip script with John DiFilippo at some point this week as well. He wants to preview Chiefs Eagles, and he really wants to talk about the bye week and what that's like for coaches as well.
Oh yeah, and then we're going to go with the Super Bowl run. And one thing he and I talked earlier this week, because the Chiefs are one of the heaviest man coverage teams. He goes, "Oh, I got that. Let's talk about the coverage beat. How do you beat man coverage? What kind of routes did you use? What positions do you use?" John's tight ends, wherever he was, whether it's Gary Barnidge, who came out of nowhere in 2015, it's actually pretty good for fantasy that year. And then after John called the place in 15, Barnidge's career went kind of down the tubes. But there are certain things you do against man coverage. And former Eagles defensive coordinator Steve Spagnuolo, who's running the Chiefs defense, well, they're going to do that. The Eagles will be going against that. So we'll see about that. And then we had our live stream last night. You could see the replay of that. We got my chat tonight. Oh, and Chuck Pagano texted me. He wanted to reschedule. So we're going to talk to him. It's funny. I talked to him about Kindle Vildor in text, but Vildor was cut on Tuesday.
Yeah.
So,
oh, well. hey, you know how it works with the practice squad. He could be back by this time next week. So
yeah, I was thinking of that. Yeah.
We'll still ask.
Yeah.
All right. So all that is on Patreon. Of course, you can become a Patreon member on patreon.com/Inside the Birds. Of course, Inside the Birds is brought to you by our friends at Ocean Casino Resort in Atlantic City. It is the exclusive Jersey Shore resort of Inside the Birds. So you mentioned the Monday workout list, and it's kind of weird because it was for all the injuries that the Eagles have had this year. I think this week's coming off the bye week, right, when guys are getting healthier, maybe the most guys that we've seen them work out in one day at the most varied positions, Adam. I mean, they've worked out guys each week along the way, but this was a pretty big list.
Well, Anthony Barr did not work out. He visited before signing with the Vikings practice squad.
Good point.
But here's the guys that they worked out. This one surprised me because I was like, what happened to Andrew Norwell? Yeah. Who was once the highest paid guard in NFL history. And with Carolina, he never played to the degree that or was the Jaguars or the Panthers. I don't remember which team it was, but he signed a monster deal and he just never lived up to it. The first team he was with, he played great. He was a stud, and then he just never played to that level. But he was released by Washington in the offseason. He had to recover from an injury, but this is a good way to do it, to see where the guy is at, because you're trying to make a Super Bowl run. Why not look at his experience? So, as I've said repeatedly, and it's important to note, you film the workouts. You could give him a physical. So now you know physically where he's at. You've worked him out. You have that tape. So let's say they want, for the Super Bowl or the playoff roster, let's say they want a veteran with experience. That's your guy if he's healthy, because he's got starting experience. So why not do that? So they've done that.
Right.
Lekatus Smith, a former Cardinals 6th-round pick last year, was cut by the Cards. He's a center. He signed the Eagles practice squad. And old friend Noah Tungiai, he's back. Mr. Y tight end, he's back. I love doing that, Y tight end. He's long storied history. The old timers from our show used to make fun of us because we would talk about him a lot because he's very important to. They needed him at this for Jack Stoll as a wide tight end, so he's bounced around and he is back. He worked out and he's to their practice squad.
Yeah, so let's go back to Norwell, because I really do think that that's an interesting signing. You mentioned, he started off.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, it's a smart thing to do to have a veteran like that and that's what they've done. And they've had it. Do they still have LaRaven Clark, or no? He got signed.
Yeah. He's
no, they still. but that's okay. It's still good to have veteran offensive linemen on the squad. He was with Carolina, went to a Super Bowl with them, signed with Jacksonville, had some good years with Jacksonville. I think his last year or two, he started to tail off. And then last year, if you remember, he was on Washington, right? Because he followed Ron Rivera, and
Correct.
he was, you could tell. And I think it was not just him. They signed somebody else to play the other guard spot. It was like two guys who were just way past
You
their
ready?
prime.
You
Who
got
was
it.
it? Who was it?
Trey Turner. You nailed
Trey
it.
Turner. That's right. Yeah.
It's just ironic that they both played for Ron.
Right.
Norwell and Turner were studs for the Super Bowl run.
Yep.
So Norwell signs a monster free agent deal in 2018 with the Jaguars. Was good, not great, and then he completely tailed off, and they had enough. They moved on. But it's not like he's 35. He is 30. He just turned 32 in October. Yes, he's had some injuries, but okay, you see where he's at, as I said. And yeah, Trey Turner was maybe one of the top 2 or 3 guards for a while. Then he completely dropped off. Went to team to team to team to team to team. I think he might be a tad younger than Norwell, but yeah, I love them. I think that's a really smart workout by the Eagles. We'll see what happens.
And also sometimes, yeah, we'll see what happens. But sometimes, like when you're not playing, as you mentioned, a lot of his deterioration, he had a lot of mileage on his body.
Yep.
A lot of starts. So maybe a little time off helps him, get that strength back. But interestingly enough, they did sign an offensive lineman, but it wasn't Andrew Norwell. We'll get into that in a second. So yeah, Norwell, Tungiai. Do you know how to pronounce this offensive lineman that they were? Is it Lakitis?
It could be.
Okay.
I'm not sure. Yeah, I don't. He just got there, so we don't know. But he did work out for them Monday. Lekatis Smith. Anyway, he's a center, whereas Ross Piersbacher is a guard center. And I knew he was with them. I didn't realize it was that long ago. They signed him off Washington's practice squad in 2020. Wow.
Yeah.
He's back 3 years later.
Wait, who signed him off Washington's practice squad?
No, back in 2020, the Eagles signed him off Washington's practice squad.
Lakeita Smith?
No, Piersbacher.
Oh, Piersbacher. Yeah. I'm sorry. You jumped ahead over there. Yes, yeah. I knew that.
Saying,
I remember Piersbacher, being on the Eagles practice squad.
No, but I just found it funny that after 3 years, like, okay, Tungiai, he's back again. It's been a couple of years, right? And then Smith is the center. So what do you make of like all these centers?
Well, like you said, I think they've got every spot here, right? They lost Julian Good-Jones. They had lost Tyree Phillips. They lost some swing guys. So now you've got your center in Laketis Smith. I'm gonna just go with Laketis. Okay. If it's Lesitis, I apologize.
Spelled like that. Yeah,
we'll find out. Now you got a natural center. You've got a swing guard, right, with Piersbacher. And then you have a swing guard tackle with LaRaven Clark, who has played both guard and tackle in the league. So I don't know. I make of it that you're in the second half of the season. You want to have as much veteran depth on your offensive line as you possibly can. They started the season with a couple of guys from the offensive line on the practice squad. At one point, they had Tyree Phillips, Clark, and Good-Jones. So they had 3 offensive linemen all together on the practice squad at one point. So now you've got 3 again, if I'm not mistaken. Right?
Yeah, I know.
Smith, Piersbacher, and Clark. Is there anybody else?
Actually, at one point they actually had 4. They had Brett Toth.
Oh yes, I forgot about that. Right.
Like who the Panthers sign off there. But yeah, you're right. Good-Jones went where? Where did he go?
I want to say Washington.
Okay. That's
right. Is that right?
I thought it was.
Yeah, Washington. Which is kind of funny because that's where Piersbacher was last, and it just seems like they're trading off, offensive linemen at this point, right? Wasn't Piersbacher last with the Washington?
He was with the Lions in the preseason. That was the last team.
Oh, yeah, okay. But I meant when he was last in the NFC with Washington, because that's
in terms of being actually on a real roster. Yeah,
on a roster, right?
So lots of roster movement, and then they on the practice squad they also released DJ Jenkins to make room for Tungiai, excuse me.
Yes,
and
Tungiai.
So they have, as you said, they now have 3 offensive linemen on the practice squad, but only 1 tackle. That's LaRaven Clark. And there you go, man. What a busy week for them. And look, it makes sense in that they were away for a week. They didn't work anyone out. We get the workout list. They didn't work anyone out, and I guess they got back to work on Monday. And they had 4 guys in. 1 visit, Anthony Barr. Oh, by the way, so he was a 43 strong side linebacker. He was one of the better strong side linebacker coverage players in the league against tight ends for years. He was just phenomenal. And because he was a pass rusher at UCLA, and they made him into more of a coverage player.
Mm-hmm.
And, he's clearly at the end of his career. And Minnesota obviously knows him, though, that staff and front office staff is kind of new there. But, hey, he did play for the Vikings previously, obviously, when he was really good. So it was interesting they brought him in. I do wonder, because Eagles play an odd front, did they see him as an outside linebacker, 34 stand-up, or did they see him as an inside backer? That's interesting.
I had the exact same thought as you. I mean, you would think when a guy gets to be a little bit older in his career, to the point where he's on the street and signing around, that when teams are looking at him, they're looking at a pass rusher more than a coverage guy, because it's a little bit easier to have enough juice left in the tank to go get the quarterback instead of running around with running backs and tight ends. So you would have thought outside linebacker, but the Eagles really don't have need and or room for another outside pass rushing linebacker. What they need is some depth at inside or off ball linebacker. So I have to think that that's why they worked him out. They wanted to see if he still had a little bit of juice left to be able to run around maybe within and do some things that they do within their defense, much like what you're seeing from Zach Cunningham. But obviously he signed with the Vikings.
So remember, you had the note about Nolan Smith and OTAs. I think you saw him playing inside backer.
Mm-hmm.
Well, maybe that, because this is not the old Pittsburgh 34 front that they use. The Eagles use a different front with running their version of Fangio system. It's not full Fangio, but it's close to it, we're told. So I do wonder if they saw Barr as a guy that could actually play inside. Who knows? But the Vikings lost Jordan Hicks, so that's kind of interesting. So he's out. He was put on IR on Tuesday. So maybe they think Barr could play inside, because he has not played in that system. This new system under Brian Flores was doing a great job with limited resources. He's turned that defense around after a terrible start. He throws a lot of junk at these offenses, and they've turned their season around. They are an unbelievable story of turning the season around. Wow.
Yeah. If I'm the Eagles, and I'm sure this is going on, I'm sure their pro scouting department has looked into the 31 other teams and their practice squads for inside linebacker. I'm sure they've gone through tape. I mean, that's just them doing their job, working out guys. Although interestingly, other than Barr, they really didn't work out anybody on the street that we know of who is a sort of natural off-ball linebacker.
Correct.
So, but again, they don't start practicing until Thursday for real, and there's still time. And like we mentioned in the last podcast, the Nakobe Dean injury does not hurt them from a starting standpoint, because Nick Morrow and Zach Cunningham are doing a fine job. The question is from a depth standpoint, because if one of those two guys gets hurt, you are looking at Christian Ellis or Ben Van Sumeren. And I think if I'm Howie Roseman, I'm not comfortable with that. And I'm really looking around the league and on the street to see if there's somebody that I think, even if I'm not saying this guy's going to play, right? You're just signing guys as insurance policies. And I really think that they need to find an insurance policy for the practice squad at that position in the form of a veteran.
Right. 100% agree. And they have to, I mentioned that on with Mike Gill on Tuesday, that they're playing with fire here with no veteran depth, because they don't need a young guy, a developmental guy right now. They're trying to make a Super Bowl run. Kind of when they signed the guy from Baltimore for the 17th season.
Donnell Ellerbe.
Right. Thank you. I always forget. Actually met him. It might have been a Senior Bowl. Somewhere I met him. I think it was in an All-Star game. But anyway, he was completely done. Like he was like clearly at the end. But that's what you do. You bring a guy like the Tim Houck move for the old-time Eagle guys. Just a guy's got a little bit left in the tank that you just need as an insurance policy. As you set that up, that's what they need. They barely need an insurance policy right now.
All right. Well, as far as insurance policies, they are getting a little bit healthier at a certain position, and we'll talk about in a second. First, I want to pause to hear a word from our friends at Ocean Casino Resort in Atlantic City.
Go to get your game on. Go for the beers. Go for the cheers. Go for the hit and the hits. Go for the stakes and the stakes. Go to get your parlay on. Go to get your party on. Go for the scene. Go for the screens. Go for the gallery. Go for the win. Go to Ocean. Visit theoceanac.com to plan your visit.
Okay, so part of the other moves that were announced by the Eagles was opening up the 21-day practice window for safety Justin Evans, who has missed the last 4 games. He went on IR in week 6 with a knee injury. All right, and the Eagles still have until Monday at 4 p.m., which gives them an extra day actually to act. Gives them, it's more about giving them he can practice whenever. It gives them the extra day to make a move for the 53-man roster. You have to think that if you see Justin Evans as a full participant at any time this week in practice, including, Thursday, if it's day 1, that he is going to be active and play, because my gosh, do they need him. He is a safety, but he did, like everybody else on the Eagles who plays defensive back, has spent some time in the slot, and he's more equipped to help out in the slot than say like a Sidney Brown or even Eli Ricks, who's just learning that for the first time. So Adam, if you get the combination of him being active, or at least out there on the practice field, and Bradley Roby, who we'll find out more about in the next 24 to 48 hours, his ability to practice, that would be a very, very good thing for the Eagles secondary.
Oh man, yeah. So they would have 4 safeties if Evans is available for this game. Roby, the only question is, will he be available this week? He's supposed to practice, and the thing, because it's not a knee or an ankle where you're worried about how well he runs and how well he moves. It's just getting cleared medically. If he gets cleared medically, he should play this week. So, but he's got to show that he's ready to go here. And remember, he had such. Did he actually get hurt in the first game he played in against the Rams? Was that?
It was the second game, because he played against the Jets. We're talking about Bradley Roby, right?
Yes.
Yeah, played against the Jets and then got hurt pretty early, I think, in the Rams game. So he didn't even make it through 2 full games. He made it through
the Rams game. The Rams game was actually the first game. The Jets was the second.
I'm sorry. He played in the Rams game, got hurt in the Jets game then.
Okay, got you.
We're talking, Roby, I'm pretty sure that was the case.
Okay.
So yeah, I mean, it was sort of like a hello, how are you, goodbye, right? Because we barely knew you. Yeah, you're right, Adam. It was he played in the Rams game, got hurt in the next week in the Jets game.
Yes. Yep. Oh boy.
Yeah.
He's been out a while. See, that's the thing. You worry about that.
Well, and here's the thing that I think happens. I mean, he's been out for a while. Let's move it back to Justin Evans.
Mm-hmm.
So first of all, he was sort of a surprise starter by the end of training camp. He had worked his way up.
Right. That's right.
He played in the first few games, and filled a couple of roles. He played safety. He wasn't playing great. That was one of the things that we noted, that he's playing because they're very thin at safety. He's doing some good things, but he did struggle in coverage. I think he even missed a game early on because he played New England, Minnesota, Tampa. He missed the week 4 game with an injury also. I forget who they played week 4, but he missed that game. Wasn't doing great. Okay?
Washington. It was Washington.
Was it Washington? I thought yes, you're right. Washington. He missed the Washington game. So here he comes back. He's kind of needed because they need bodies and the experience. But what I wonder, and we'll see, Monday night, I think Sidney Brown has played well when he's asked not to be a cover slot guy. I think when he's had to defend the run, he's played well. I think when he's played a safety spot, he's played pretty well. So Justin Evans comes back, but it wasn't like he was lighting it up. He was just a guy they were leaning on. So you wonder, I don't know that Sidney Brown's all of a sudden going to take a huge step back now that Justin Evans is in, because again, Evans hasn't played in 5 weeks. So I don't know what kind of conditioning he's going to be in. Right. And Sidney Brown is starting to show you something. And now that you can play Sidney in his natural safety spot and let Roby, if Roby's back, play nickel, you wonder what becomes of Evans.
Yeah. So Brown would play first and second level. If Evans could be a factor where he could play, like, let's say 20, 25 snaps, that means you do, because again, Brown and Evans are going to be sub-package players, or they're going to be backups.
Mm-hmm.
So going forward, that's it. They have no chance to start if the other guys are healthy. So you've got good depth now. You could play big nickel if you want with Evans back, and Brown could continue his learning because he has to. He's being asked to do things he's not done before. He was strictly a box safety at Illinois. Box safeties typically are not drafted in the first 2 rounds, and he was a 3rd rounder. but the expectation is someday that he'll start. It's not going to be this season if the other two guys are healthy, obviously. So they'll go forward with that. And then obviously with Roby getting him back this week would be huge. We could debate whether they've had 8 or 9 nickels this season. It just depends on. It's been absolute insanity. Don't remember covering this business for 24 years when a team didn't have a nickel corner and they lost their top 2 guys. So it's not like you could just grab one off the street, I guess. But what we're still looking into. We have all the workouts, but we don't see any workouts for slot corners.
Right.
So maybe Kindle Vildor, the horror actor. No, Kindle Vildor, the football player, will maybe he'll, as you said earlier, maybe he'll transition back to the practice squad later. But so those, the 2 defensive injuries are Dean we know about. He should go on IR by Monday. Could be today, as early as today, whatever they want to do. And then obviously Roby, we'll take a look and see what happens in practice this week.
Right. And of course, by the way, the Eagles have Kevin Byard now. So really their starting safeties are Byard and Reed Blankenship. So I guess you have optionality now, and it helps special teams to have Evans and Brown back and being able to kind of contribute on defense, like you said, if they have to play some big nickel or help out on special teams. That's good for them too. One thing that I found interesting, they put Justin Evans into the 21-day window. They did not do that for Quez Watkins, who was also eligible to come off. And it makes you want, why? If he's going to come off this week, why did he not come off, but Justin Evans did? Because both were eligible to come off at the same exact time.
Right. So Watkins, if he's not activating the window on Thursday, it's almost certain he won't play, because why would you wait? Like, right. You would want to get him. He's been out for such a while, since week 6. You'd want him. I mean, you really don't want this guy 5-6 weeks not only practicing 2 days and activating him. So if he's not active, if they don't make that window activation by Thursday, obviously he wouldn't play. But here's the question though, when he comes back, because this is going to be interesting what happens with Watkins. Now, if they have Julio Jones, how much 12 versus 11 personnel will they use? I'm so fascinated to see what happens with that.
Yeah. So let's go back to the rules also on this. So Quez Watkins he's missed his 4 games from injured reserve, right?
Correct.
How long do they have to activate him into the 21-day window? Like, he can't spend 7 weeks on injured reserve and then be activated into the 21-day window, right?
He can. It depends on
really?
which. Yeah,
Okay.
They're two different injured reserves. There's long term and short term.
Right.
The rules for each one. So on your point is right in that if they put him on short term IR, yes, there's a certain amount of weeks that they only have to put him in when they turn the transaction in. One of the personnel people I spoke to about this over the last couple of years told me it has to be designated short term or long term. One is like up to 6 weeks, and the other one might be up to whatever. It's the other one's called major injury IR. That might be. There may not be a time frame for that one, but I know short term, I believe it's up to 6 weeks. So on your point, yes, depending on how they deem that on the transaction when they put the paperwork in, that would determine how long they would have. That's a really good point you made. I hadn't thought about that. It's really not come up before, but that's another thing we're going to look into, and we'll try to answer that for you on Friday. We may know Friday, but I'm sure on Monday, because I'd like to know if they don't activate it. But just in general, I'd like to know.
Yeah.
There's specific language for that. Good one.
Right. Yeah. And then again, it only sticks out a little bit like a sore thumb in that Evans was activated into the 21-day window. Watkins was not, and both went on IR at the same week. So just something there we'll effort more information as they like to say in our business.
One thing on that, on Quez Watkins, remember he had a setback with it.
Yes.
Setback. He originally hurt it early in the season, missed time, came back, hurt it again. I know people were like, "Oh, are they putting him on IR? Is it a phantom injury?" No, it's just he re-injured the hamstring, and it's obviously now it's wow, as you said, it's kind of long. Boy, he really must have. We don't know if it's a full tear of his hamstring, moderate strain. We don't know, but it must be pretty bad. And see, that's why I brought this up, because when he comes back, we know he's the fastest guy downfield that they have. You've got Jones's muscle, his experience. You've got Watkins, who could run. AJ Brown's a stud. Smith's a stud. That's a pretty good grouping. Now, obviously, once they get Goddard back late in the season, that now you're cooking with oil here. You've got a lot of optionality with your sets between 11 and 12. Red zone obviously could be better than the explosiveness depending on the matchups, and we'll see what happens. But once they get everyone back, it could be kind of fun.
Absolutely. All right, we'll get into some more injury information in a second. We've been telling you it is winter and it's noticeable now. You're starting to feel that bone cold at night. I know when I'm walking the dog at night, Adam, I'm a little like, oh, getting a little chilly out here, even though it was like 75 degrees the other day at night. You can tell winter's coming. It's getting darker earlier. People eat dinner earlier when that happens. And then the time, it just seems to go by faster. That's why we love HelloFresh. They deliver farm fresh food with pre-proportioned ingredients and seasonal recipes right to our doorstep. No more wasting time at the grocery store, because America's #1 meal kit help makes home cooking easy, efficient, and affordable. We don't have to worry about researching recipes. We don't have to plan out our meals in advance. With HelloFresh, the shopping's already done. The perfect amount of ingredients arrive with step-by-step recipe cards. How efficient is that? All right. Plus, HelloFresh saves you time and money. HelloFresh is 25% less expensive than takeout. So you get a home-cooked meal without digging deep into your wallet. I tell you, I think that's the most important. To me, winter, sometimes people are so quick to get takeout because it's darker earlier and you're like, oh my God, I have nothing. But no, you got HelloFresh now. You don't have to worry about that. And you can still eat healthy. Plus, there's great taste and selection. HelloFresh makes food for meat lovers, seafood lovers. If you're a vegetarian, they got food for you. Vegan, same thing. And anyone who loves variety. All right. I'm going to be trying some of their chicken recipes pretty soon because I've just done their seafood. It was great. And now I want to see what their chicken and meat recipes are like. So go to HelloFresh.com/50Eagles and use the code 50Eagles, all one word, for 50% off plus free shipping. That's HelloFresh.com/50Eagles, 50Eagles, and use the code 50Eagles for 50% off plus free shipping. Act now for America's #1 meal kit. I was never very good at math, but I'm pretty sure, Adam, 50% off means you're getting it at half price.
Wow.
Is that half price? That's pretty good, right?
What's the code? Is it 50 Eagles?
Yeah, 50Eagles, all one word.
Nice.
50. You can't get 50% off anything these days. Food.
No,
especially.
most of these companies do anywhere between 10 and 25%. To do 50 is awesome.
Yeah.
And I remember when we first got it, I was in a pinch. I'm like, all right, I'm going to put these guys to work already. I'm going to do this. It took me a minute and a half to 2 minutes to prepare my meal on the go. And I'm like, this is awesome.
It's awesome.
I was like, this is what I'm looking for.
Honestly, I love it. I think it's great. You know, I'm kind of a foodie, but even if you're not, if you're just like decent meals, it's really good stuff. I've been pleasantly surprised. I had no idea what to expect. Fresh herbs and spices, everything. It's really, really good.
With it. Yep.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. So some of the other injuries that we have to talk about, obviously we know Dallas Goedert. Here's another thing. I guess some of this might be procedural, but at what point do you think they're going to put Dallas Goedert on IR? Maybe they're waiting to activate Justin Evans so they can do 1-for-1 and then don't have to make any kind of corresponding move there. That would be my guess.
Well, you've got Evans and Jurgens. So,
oh yeah.
Yeah, Jurgens, those are the two, and you've got the two moves to make with.
Well, then, yeah, Nakobe could be the other, right?
Right, that's it. I mean, it's 2 for 2. 2 for 2.
Yeah, so Cam Jurgens, I would anticipate being back. I mean, he was into the practice window last week. They didn't play him. They started the rookie right guard, Tyler Steen. Then you have the bye week, so it almost gave him a built-in extra week. I almost wonder what he did compared to everybody else, because his conditioning has to be up to speed with everybody who's been playing for the last 5 or 6 weeks, right? So you wonder if Cam Jurgens was told to enjoy himself over the bye week, but don't go too far and make sure you're getting your cardio in, get on that treadmill, do whatever you can do, you know?
He has put mass on his body. Like, he got much bigger this offseason. Because remember how small he was? I don't even know if he was 300 when they drafted him. He's certainly looking the 290s. I don't know what his exact weight is now, but he's built his body up, and it didn't look good for him to play guard last year. But man, did he play well before he got hurt. He certainly had me convinced he could do it. I wasn't sure, like a lot of people around the league weren't. It's more of a center, not a guard. But man, he got the technique down, and it's not always easy because Stout teaches it differently than other teams do. And it's been a good story. And look, we know he's going to replace Kelsey when he's done playing, whatever that is. But in the interim, man, he's shown that he could play this right guard. Been a nice story so far.
Do you think next year's offensive line is going to look on the inside Dickerson, Jurgen, Steen? I'm kind of assuming Jason Kelsey calls it quits, although that might be I think I've said that the last 2 years, but
I'm done doing that because he told us every time, even people close to him and close to the situation, we're like, well, we thought it. We really did think this would be it, but it wasn't. Knock on wood, we'll see. I'm sure the Eagles would love to have him back if he wants to play. But the cool thing is they're still really young. Mailata's what, 27?
Yeah.
Jordan turns 27 in March, so he's still really young. Dickerson, who could get his contract extended, just turned 25 in September. Steen is a little older as a rookie. He turns 24 in June, but again, this is still a young offensive line. How cool is that? You just replenish with younger and talented guys, and a coach who knew about Mailata when he was drafted. He wasn't even a football player. Became one.
Right.
So
and would you be surprised if their first round pick in 2024 was an offensive tackle?
Yes.
You'd be surprised?
Well, here's the thing. Mailata's are left for a long time.
Right.
Yes, Lane needs to be replaced eventually, but here's the problem. Would you rather go with two old corners who one of them clearly looks like he's lost a step?
Well, listen, I mean, I would say 50-50 offensive tackle or cornerback, but the cornerback they want might not be there at that point. They're going to pick pretty low in the first round.
Yeah, I understand. Yeah, I know. Oh, it could be 32nd. And yeah, Beggar's kid. It's kind of like the Jerry West, the former Lakers GM, when they kept winning the title, he would and still do great in the draft. He just would take the best player, and every once in a while you'd be like, "Who is this guy?" And they get the player turned to be great.
Sure.
But so on your point, yeah, it depends obviously who's there, but to me, yes, they need a future right tackle. But to me, the more immediate, because Lane's not retiring after the season. The more immediate need is they better get a young corner in there, start getting them ready, because you're seeing what happens when you put an old secondary together. You just never know when it's going to happen. But 24 Bradbury's, you wonder. Let's hope he gets it back. Maybe he was tired. Who knows what the issue is? Everybody knows he's not played as well. We'll see what the second half delivers for him.
We will. All right. A little early intel on Eagles Chiefs in a second. Want to remind everybody to check out our friends at phlsportsnation.com, enhancing the fans' experience with their coverage of all Philadelphia sports teams. For the fan, by the fan is their motto. So make sure you check them out. phlsportsnation.com and on Twitter at phlsportsnation. Let's also pause to hear a word from our great friends at Sky Motor Cars.
Sky Motor Cars in Westchester is a different sort of dealership. All it takes is one look at their Highline pre-owned vehicles that people all over the country want and need. Owner Brett Schulter, make sure you don't spend a dime of your money before you purchase the car. Sky Motor Cars allows you to make all the decisions regarding your next vehicle. At Sky Motor Cars, you never have to spend more than necessary. Visit SkyMotorCars.com today or call 610-918-7225.
All right, if you hop into Sky Motor Cars out there in Westchester, PA, make sure you tell them Adam and Geoff sent you. If not, it's all right. You can go to SkyMotorCars.com. One thing about this Chiefs team, Adam, is that it's so different. Even watching them on tape. I mean, this is gonna be the first time we talk about a Chiefs team where the defense is really the star of the show. And I'm not sitting here saying Patrick Mahomes isn't a star or neither Travis Kelsey, but they rank higher in their defensive ratings categories than their offensive categories. And Steve Spagnuolo is doing some things with these guys. And don't let Steve Spagnuolo get talent because he will make the most of it.
Honestly, I mean, I know Trent McDuffie was a first-round pick, but there were knocks on his size.
Mm-hmm.
But he has gotten so much out of L'Jarius Sneed. Justin Reed's a really underrated safety. Brian Cook, who's a good safety out of Cincinnati. Nick Jones and the guys that they rolling off. Mike Edwards, who's a third safety. Jalen Watson, who's a corner, was drafted last year. See, Spags, I know I do radio every Thursday in 8:10 a.m. there, WHB, at 8:30 Eastern every Thursday during the season and playoffs. And man, when I first started doing the segments, when Spags came in there, the fans were on them. What's wrong? Why are they so bad? They're, you know how the
Mhm.
fans were killing Gannon last year?
Yes.
It was the same thing, man. They couldn't take the guy anymore. They wanted him out, and you just mentioned it. Get the guy some talent. It's not
Yeah.
even top end talent. It's good talent, but and some years they've been more zone. This year they're heavy man. Now again, when I
Mhm.
say that, it's not like they're playing 50 or 60% man. We'll talk more about the number. We have some really good stats on what they're doing defensively, but Chris Jones after his holdout, Mike Dana is very underrated.
Yep.
Omenahu just came off suspension. The only guy who won't play is their middle linebacker. Nick Bolton is really good. Drew Tranquil, who's more of a 34 inside backer. He's not filling in for him.
Yeah, he's playing really good, by the way.
Player, yeah.
Yeah, I surprised. I thought he was like kind of an afterthought. I think when they signed him, they just thought, a depth guy, but he's actually
Exactly.
he's flying to the ball. That whole front seven, and they have they figured out how to use George Karlaftis correctly. He's starting to become a nice little player for them. Where at first he seemed like is he an end? Is he a tackle and nickel?
Right.
There were some questions, but they're moving him around. And obviously, when you put him with other talented guys, then you get a nice little mix there. So this is what noticed me, and I've only watched a little bit of their defense, but they're a very fast flowing, fast moving defense, which is like what we saw from Dallas and Miami. So they can present some problems here.
You know who doesn't play for them? Neil Farrell, who was a 2022 D tackle, 4th rounder for the Raiders. They traded for him. He doesn't play. They had a kid named Tershawn Wharton who had I think an ACL last year. He had an injury, so he's back. And Farrell doesn't really dress because they have in nickel, they can move. Sometimes their ends play inside. And their first rounder doesn't really play much, if at all, out of Kansas State. So they're really good. They're well coached, well schemed. Offensively, see, this is the thing. If Roby could come back this week, that'll really help. But the guy we're gonna talk more about Rashee Rice on Friday. He's really come on here because Sky Moore is not number 24. We could get the Eagles in the Super Bowl. Mecole Hardman's back, but he's only a returner. Justin Watson out of the University of Pennsylvania is their shot play guy, and Kadarius Toney's been a big zero this season. He's done nothing.
Yes, him and Sky Moore have been very disappointing. They have not made the most of their opportunities. They've dropped passes, but here's the problem: these guys can get open. It's just that they don't catch the ball all the time. And we saw Kadarius Toney get open against the Eagles in the Super Bowl, so they're a threat. You still got to take them seriously. But you're right; they've caused headaches for Patrick Mahomes this year. Rashee Rice is emerging. And of course, they have Travis Kelce. So we'll break that all down. But it's a different kind of Chiefs team than we've seen in the past. And then one thing that I'll leave everybody with is, Adam, a trivia question for you. And since the start of 2013, what team do you think has the best home record in the NFL? That's 10 years now so you have to go back, to 2013, 10 years.
Kansas City.
It is the Kansas City Chiefs, and this game is at Arrowhead Stadium. So, it's by about 2 or 3 games over whoever was number 2.
Oh, wow. Over 2 or 3, the next one. Nick Sirianni, best road record since he became the head coach.
Right.
That means a lot. That's early. I've been picking against the Eagles, and I don't know how long. I'd love to remember that. But anyway, the bottom line is it's going to be fun. Can't wait for Monday night.
There you go. That's going to do it for this edition of Inside the Birds, the leading podcast in Eagles Intel. And as always, we thank you for flying with us inside the birds.